Hi, and thank you for joining me today. My name is Ian McPherson. I'm part of the AWS Partner team, and I manage our partner relationships with software ISVs in the media and entertainment space. Today, I'm here to talk to you about a really interesting project where we've worked with our customers and partners to migrate broadcast operations to the cloud. So I'm joined today by Matt Westrup, who's from A&E UK, as well as Srinivasan, who's from Amagi Media Labs. Matt, do you want to do a quick introduction?
Sure, thanks, Ian. I'm Matt Westrup. I'm the VP of Technology and Operations in EMEA for A&E Networks UK.
Great. And Srini?
Thanks, Ian. I'm Srini. I'm one of the co-founders of Amagi, and I head our global sales and marketing.
Great. So we're here today to talk about a project that Amagi did with A&E UK. And Matt, you want to just give us a little background on A&E UK specifically?
Yeah, A&E Networks UK are based in London, but we manage our 5 brands across 60 million homes in 100 countries and 21 languages. And we've been doing that for about 20 years. And that's across both, a portfolio of linear offerings and SVOD and OTT as well.
Excellent. And Srini, a quick background on Amagi.
Sure. Amagi is a cloud-based managed service provider helping television networks, sports rights owners, content owners, and studios create 24/7 linear TV channels on the cloud, distribute them to both traditional pay cable satellite platforms as well as OTT platforms, monetize them through SSAI, and monitor them, end to end. Offices across the globe in New York, LA, London, New Delhi, and Bangalore. About 225 employees. We've been around for more than 12 years now, completely born in the cloud, provide 4 broad services, a homegrown broadcast automation and Playout, which we believe is the best in class, server-side ad insertion platform. And both of these are provided as a fully managed service, backed up with a 60-people network operations center. We manage more than 350 television channels across the globe with deployments in more than 40 countries.
Excellent. Well, thanks, Srini. So Matt, let's talk about where you started. What was the initiative behind starting to move your broadcast operations to the cloud?
So we have about 30 services that we've been running for some time amongst a number of service providers, and that had been using traditional technology on-prem, although of late probably virtualized. And we had already been thinking about what our next strategic move would be in terms of how we were going to be able to manage our services, and the cloud was a very appealing option for us. And we actually did a proof of concept with Amagi about a year ago, or maybe 18 months ago. But then we faced a quite unusual and very challenging business situation where one of our key providers, that business got into quite a bit of trouble. And we had to stand up a disaster recovery scenario. And so it felt natural that we would approach Amagi to look at whether a cloud-based solution would work for us.
And so as you were starting down that path, how did you start to scope the overall migration? Was it the DR project first, and then you went into the full production Playout, or did you do this all at once?
No, it felt like we did it all at once, but we actually had to manage what was as I said, an unusual business sort of environment. And so we were, facts were thin on the ground, and dates and sort of the normal kind of way that you would engage in this. We didn't have the benefit of that kind of structure. And so we did start with a lightweight DR, and that grew over weeks and months into basically a full-on sort of shadow operation of all our services, that then was running up to speed and in parallel with our existing services, waiting for the moment that we would find out whether we were going to need to switch, which then did happen, and then we fully migrated then very rapidly. And we had to do that, all that activity and all that sort of stress without our end users being aware of it whatsoever. So it was quite a challenge.
And Srini, so when you have a project like that where you have to have an uninterrupted service, tell us a little bit about how you guys approach it and what the underlying architecture looks like.
Absolutely. The DR provides us a great path for us to, as Matt mentioned, to get the project started and have a parallel playout running on the cloud. And the fact that we had a cloud-based solution allowed us the flexibility to have a DR solution that was ready to go primary without having to, invest upfront, given the uncertainty of the situation. The entire architecture was built with zero hardware in mind. We had actually picked up the content. A&E UK is a fairly large operation, right? As Matt mentioned, 30 services, 50,000 plus hours of content, 60 plus deliveries, 300 plus operators, 12 languages, multiple ad partners. So fairly complex workflow from a start to end. And here, what we were trying to do was essentially replicate their complete on-prem and fiber-based distribution to a cloud-based model. So what we started off was, essentially ingesting all the content, making all the content ready for TX as part of the DR project, making it all available and be ready to switch over. We integrated workflows to replicate their existing workflows so that the operations does not need to change. And from an end delivery perspective, again, ensure that we have the connectivity, to all the delivery, the POPs that are needed directly from AWS, either through Direct Connect or through an IP mechanism using Media Connect or Zixi. The whole once it went to primary, the entire setup was run in a 1+1 fashion across two different availability zones. Again, all of it running in AWS Europe. The entire content was ingested into AWS S3. All the automation was running on an EC2 instance. Again, our entire playout is based on CPUs, no GPUs here. So we had two parallel playouts running across two different AZs and two different EC2 instances. We had a hitless switcher called CP switcher, homegrown switcher, that was running across both of these AZs in a butterfly model, whereby if either the playout or the switcher fails, it'll or one of the switchers fail, it'll automatically switch to the other playout on the other switcher. And the output was connected through, as I mentioned, through AWS Direct Connect, as well as Media Connect to the teleports and the fiber POPs for pickup by the affiliates. We also had an ad ingest of commercials from local ad partners directly into S3 as well. And all of these were monitored using a homegrown multi-view monitoring interface and a full, what we call as a Skynet monitoring interface that monitors ingest playlist and the playout using a browser-based interface at our NOC.
That's fantastic. So for companies who are looking at that kind of approach to moving to the cloud and starting with DR, what benefits and advantages does the cloud bring in building DR for primary playout?
I think the power of cloud is its innate ability to be able to scale up and down and to have the flexibility to turn it off at an instant notice. Again, typically we have seen three different models, right? Where you have a complete parallel shadow running on the cloud of whatever your on-prem infrastructure is. That's what you would call as a DR, potentially with egress alone turned off to save costs. But your playout and automation exactly replicating your primary on the cloud. The second option that we have seen a number of customers starting to use as well is where you have the automation running on the cloud. All the content is ingested, all your schedules are available, but you don't spin up the playout itself until that was the model that we actually used initially for a lot of channels with A&E UK, so that we're not spending money on the playout instances themselves, but be available to turn on at an instant notice as and when needed. The third, of course, is a purely cold backup DR that we have seen some of our customers using, where you have evergreen content that is available and an evergreen playlist that is available, where both automation and playout can be turned on based on a disaster, event happening.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And so, Matt, I mean, we can look at the current world we live in and say we've got a disaster, and it's really caused people to change the way they work and the way that you're able to support broadcast operations. Tell me a little bit about how this project impacted or fit into change in your operations.
So Srini has said there was quite a wide span of flexibility and approaches that were available to us, and actually we didn't necessarily know that we were going to need them all, but we knew they were available. And so what it gives you is great flexibility in decision making, and you can de-risk some of those decisions. So as Srini had said, we could get that content migration, which is a big enough project in itself. And then you can have, cold playout with, you have all your instances configured and worked out and ready to go, but you spin them down and they're there if you need them. And then when you need them, you spin them up. So it meant that there was, no one was investing massively in fixed infrastructure to be able to, which would have limited, the decision-making processes that we had. And that's in a kind of, as you said, a business continuity point of view. But actually, now we're able to we have a much closer relationship with the content and the playout through the cloud tools that Amagi have. So we can really monitor things and ensure that our workflows are working exactly as they should be. It means that we're much faster to market if we need to be. We've launched pop-ups already. We actually, in the middle of all of this, launched a new channel in just after Christmas. So it really gave us the kind of flexibility and speed that we had not experienced before. And for us also, it meant that we had a significant managed TX library in the cloud, which is something we hadn't done before. So across those three areas, it's given us quite a wider variety of options and benefits.
Interesting. Matt, can you talk a little bit more about how things work today?
Yeah, it's a great question, because I think we had probably only a couple of weeks from the final go live when we realized this was going live. And we got over that kind of initial 2-week go live kind of period, and then we started having to plan our business continuity for lockdown, and that involved talking to a lot of our partners about their own readiness. It wasn't just about what we could do; it was about what our partners could do. And this was just Amagi put a bow on it for us. Really, it was so straightforward. It was seamless. We didn't have to worry about it. Everyone, both Amagi and ANE UK, we all had the access we wanted from just as long as we had some internet, and so it was absolutely seamless broadcast operations from that perspective, which was a real win for us.
Yeah, that's wonderful to hear. I think it's a great illustration too of something we talk about in terms of getting out of the undifferentiated heavy lifting of running data centers and broadcast operations. Your business is providing content to your customers and monetizing that content. And there's not a real advantage for your competitively for running a broadcast center or broadcast operations. But it sounds like you were able to focus your resources really on customers' experience and quality of the experience without having to worry so much about infrastructure.
Yeah, that's entirely right, actually, and that's part of the ethos of our business, anyways. Content is what we do, and as technology and operations, that's what we're here to support. And so you're right, we didn't have to worry about the big infrastructure questions, and because of the cloud nature of that playout, the teams had a much closer relationship with that content and with the workflows, which really meant that it became intuitive, and it meant both the Amagi teams and the ANE UK teams worked really, really closely together.
And Srini, what's your advice to companies who want to start down this path? Where do you start?
The way we have seen is that, again, different companies take different approach, right? I mean, obviously, a risk comparatively low risk approach is to actually look at this as a secondary or a DR option that we're doing for a number of customers, where they validate, have all the content on the cloud ingested, all available, validate that the cloud performs as well, if not better than their DR or their on-premise solution, and then plan for migration path. Right. The second set of customers that we have seen is use that for their not so premium channels. Again, validate this through non-live not so premium channels first, and then use that as a migration path to get into their premium. The third set of customers that we have seen is use that for their OTT first, their OTT linear offerings first, and then migrate to more primary on-prem solutions moving into the cloud. So again, different customers take different approach. Again, our advice has been that get the content in the cloud, see that in action first. You would be surprised how fast the whole end-to-end migration can happen and how reliable cloud service can be. I mean, any UK was a classic example of a whole accelerated approach where we're pretty much from start to finish, we were able to get the entire migration done in a 8 to 12 week time frame. For the complexity that was involved.
Yeah, that's really fantastic. That was going to be my last question, is just how long did this actually take? And so if we're talking about three months, I mean, that's a remarkable transformation, migration story. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much. I want to thank you both for participating and sharing what's a wonderful story and insight into a really powerful transformation. Srini, Matt, thank you very much. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you so much for having us.
We're going to transition now, and I'm going to hand this off to my colleague, Andy Kane, who's going to talk a little bit more in depth about broadcast playout from the cloud. Andy.
Great. Thanks, Ian. So like Ian said, my name is Andy Kane. I'm a business development manager for the AWS Elemental Media Services, and I want to talk to you today about the broadcast distribution in the cloud. I think we had a great story from Amagi and A&E talking about Playout in the cloud, but broadcast distribution is way more than just Playout. We feel like we have some of the best solutions in the industry to help with that. Along with our ProServe and our partners, we can build an end-to-end distribution for broadcasters that take advantage of the AWS cloud. So before we jump into the exact technical details and maybe how we look at things, I want to talk about the macro trends that we're seeing, why customers are moving to the cloud, especially for broadcasters. So the first macro trend we see is increased demand. Nature of the world we live in today, consumers are staying at home more, consuming more content. And it's not just that they want to consume more content or newer content, they want to consume quality content. I think the other interesting fact is that it's easier now more than ever for customers or consumers to change platforms. So the content needs to be captivating, and there needs to be experiences that really engage that consumer. So the second macro trend that we're seeing is there's a foundational shift going on, and this is more with the infrastructure that we're seeing within broadcasters. It is no longer the let's just buy a new production switcher that happens to have more capacity for channels. It's not take the old hardware, replace it with the new hardware. There is a shift going on of how to move their CapEx to OpEx, which allows for more free cash flow and just better flexibility of the resources. So then the third macro trend that we're seeing is the experimenting with intent. Well, what does that actually mean? I found this statistic and a couple of days ago, and it's really interesting to me, is that the amount of capital it takes to launch a new channel has been reduced by 97%. Now, granted, this was over 20 years, and that's quite a long time, but we feel like this is just the tip of the iceberg. By leveraging the cloud, you're able to drive that cost even further down. So what does that actually mean to the customers as we see it? That we are able to experiment more, try new channels, try new things without a capital penalty. Then the fourth macro trend that we're seeing is, once again, we're in a interesting times to say the least, but we're seeing more of a remote workforce that is globally dispersed. It's no longer that we're working from home 1 to 2 days a week. This is kind of the state of of business today, and how do we adapt to that? But it's not necessarily a bad thing, because now broadcasters and content producers can take advantage of talent that is global, instead of having to source talent that is local to the broadcast studio or the content creation studio. But it comes with its own challenges, and that's what we're here to solve with AWS. And I think the fifth one, which is actually a really interesting one, is the advent of the next generation of distribution. So why is this interesting? So with 5G, ATSC 3.0, single frequency networks, even next gen satellite like Project Kuiper from Amazon, it's giving unfederated access to content to consumers that previously have not been within reach. And what we're seeing is that the need for engagement has increased exponentially, but also the reach has increased exponentially. So now you have segments in the market that may not have the same type of taste or needs that previously had been kind of the bread and butter of most of the broadcasters. So those were the 5 macro trends that we see are very important to our customers. What I want to level set on is what we see as a television delivery pipeline. What do we actually mean by that? So television delivery pipeline or broadcast delivery pipeline is essentially we're taking content, a lot of content, from various factors, whether it be sporting events, or you're rolling up a truck and it's a news event, or even you're getting remote journalists that are sending in feeds from perhaps the various activities out in the field, right? And what we're doing is we're taking that in, we're transforming it, we're manipulating it, and then we're sending it out to not just a single distribution channel, but to multiple distribution channels. So it could be over the air, to cable, OTT streaming. Now, in the legacy days, or the traditional way of doing things, you would have separate workflows and separate delivery pipelines for each one of these. So I'd have my pipeline for over the air, I'd have my pipeline for OTT streaming. But the quote that I found from a recent Devoncroft gathering was, whether it was from a media company CTO, and it was, whether an asset is delivered to an on-demand or linear platform, the manufacturing process has to be the same. We can't have separate supply chains. And so what we're seeing is a consolidation of supply chains, but that becomes very difficult when you've built supply chains that are purpose built for a single distribution avenue. So what we feel at AWS is that you can use the AWS Media Services and the other technology surrounding it, including our partners such as Amagi, to build out an end-to-end distribution platform that is flexible enough to adapt to the new distribution channels. And so what you'll see here is it's the television pipeline, but it's leveraging the AWS components. I'll walk through the AWS components for you very quickly. So we're taking in the live broadcast feeds, or it could even be a VOD asset that is being streamed, so you could build out your linear channel, but we'll work with the live for right now. So what this diagram is showing is being able to take that live signal via transport stream, leveraging Media Connect, and this can be contributed to Media Connect in various ways, as long as it's an MPEG-2 transport stream. Media Connect will reliably and securely move that live transport stream into the AWS cloud. Now from there, I can actually just put it into my Playout system. Like I said, with one of our partners like Amagi, they've built a cloud-based Playout system. Now you can do all the transformation that's needed onto that live stream. And what's interesting is, because it's in the cloud, it's very flexible. So now I can actually create a VOD asset and dump that into an S3 bucket, or I can actually take assets that I want to put into that stream, like overlays or graphics or whatever I want to do there, from the S3 bucket, and be able to transform that live stream. Then what I can do is move it over to Media Live, which is our live system that is able to actually do transformation on that live signal. And what I really want to point out there is what's underneath Media Live. It says SMX, ABR, and CBR. It's not or, it's and. I can do all three of those. I can create a stat mux, I can create an adaptable bitrate ladder, or I can just do a CBR, which is a constant bitrate. What that is showing is now I can have a single stream and deliver it into multiple distribution channels. Leveraging Media Connect, I can now send it via IP to an uplink. So now I've got my established satellite distribution, or I can use Media Connect to send it directly to the head end. And then the third option is with the OTT streaming. And this is kind of where Elemental's bread and butter was back when they were first founded, but have definitely expounded on our capabilities in that realm. So what I'm able to do now is take that live stream, push it via Media Connect into a typical OTT distribution channel. And what's interesting about these is the distribution channels can almost stay the same in that I don't have to change anything on the receiving end. But what I'm doing is I'm taking advantage of the AWS cloud to be flexible and have that one pipeline to the various distribution channels. So I'm showing you how we do an end-to-end live pipeline, but how do I do it reliably? When we're talking broadcast, we can't go down. A blank screen is no good for anybody. So what we've looked at is how do we build a reliable distribution channel for broadcast? And I won't spend too much time on this. We can, if you're interested in how this works, we'd be more than happy to sit down with you and walk through exactly how you build a redundant pipeline. But as you can see, we can take dual feeds in through Direct Connect. Direct Connect is going to allow you to have a dedicated pipe into the AWS cloud, and then leverage Media Connect to split that signal. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm taking Media Connect, I'm splitting the signal, I'm going into two different playout systems. And if for some reason I want to switch between playout systems or I want to change feeds, I'm able to do that by sending that signal into Media Connect and then let Media Connect take it from there, right? Because Media Connect, you can almost think of it as a digital amplifier in the cloud, right? So it's one to many. Because of that, I'm able to split signals within Media Connect without a degradation in quality or reliability. And then with Media Connect, I can then move it into Media Live, do my transformations such as creating a stat mux or the ABR or CBR, and then push that via Media Connect into a dual DX, so a direct connect again on the way out into my established uplink. And then, of course, what you see around the blue boundaries around this whole thing is how do I monitor this? And that is leveraging things like Amazon CloudWatch or leveraging one of our partners that has built maybe a multi-viewer for the cloud like Tag. So what we're saying here is you can leverage your established distribution channels in a reliable fashion using AWS Media Services. So I know I went over that. It's very high level, but I think what I want to touch on now are kind of the three business drivers we see and how AWS is helping our customers move to the cloud. So the three that we see is cost efficiencies, modernization. This is really that conversation we had about moving from a CapEx model to an OpEx model. And how do you do that? Because business operations can't be impaired. We just talked about how do we make sure that our broadcast distribution doesn't go to a blank screen. So what I showed in prior slides is a whole bunch of components put together in the AWS cloud. The beautiful thing about that is that I can take maybe one, maybe two of those services and start folding them in. So now I can have a gentle roll in, or I could go with a big bang approach and do a cutover, but you can do it in a flexible fashion that allows your business to continue. I think the Amagi story really rings true of being able to do a migration in a very short time without impacting the business. Remote live production. It is a fact of life. We feel that this is kind of the future, but there's inherent risk with that. You've got the impact of latency, a reduction in resiliency possibly, or degradation. We feel like we at AWS have solved for these, or at least are solving for them, I should say. With the new services that we offer, such as Outpost, Wavelength, Local Zones, we're extending the cloud closer to our customers, which in turn is reducing latency. With DX and with Media Connect, we're increasing the resiliency of being able to take a signal and put it reliably into the AWS cloud and process it. And then degradation and quality, how are we addressing that? We feel that with the AWS Media Services, that is our number one. We pride ourselves on quality, and the new services that we're rolling out, quality is number one. And then the third business driver that we find that is really kind of moving us forward, or moving our customers forward, is our ability to adapt quickly. And what do I mean by that? That's that experimentation with intent. And you're able to now, as a content creator or a broadcaster, able to spin up channels very quickly without having a very heavy investment in CapEx on equipment that has to sit around 3 to 5 years because of a depreciation cycle, and you may not even touch that anymore. So it's just taking up space in a data center. And I've walked through many a data centers in my time where you try to figure out, well, where's this next rack gonna go? Well, with the AWS cloud, I'm no longer beholden to the 4 walls of my data center. I've got scale, I can spin things up, I can spin them down, which is reducing my cost and increasing my agility. So those are the business drivers, and how we feel AWS and our partners can actually help move broadcasters into the cloud. Customers are interested, we're more than happy to help by bringing in our partners, our customers, and creating an environment that they're really comfortable with, and being able to help them move.
Wow, that's really interesting, Andy. I think it's a really good illustration of the value of the cloud for broadcast in providing always on, highly scalable and globally available set of services. So how do companies get started?
Great question, Ian. So I think the easiest way for companies to get started is to visit the media splash page. So that is at aws.amazon.com/media. And from there, you'll be able to see a lot of customer testimonials. Solution architects have created some diagrams for folks to look at. But we also have the ability to share some of these via our media solutions. And these are one-click solutions that customers are able to launch within their account, leverage them as POCs, and check out what AWS has to offer.
That's awesome. So I want to say thank you, Andy, for sharing all that information. I also want to thank our previous guests, Srini and Matt, for their insights into moving broadcast playout to the cloud. I want to also invite you to stay tuned. And the next session we'll be having will be about remote live production on AWS. Thanks again for joining. This is Ian. Bye-bye.